And the Chicago Police Department is under scrutiny yet again after an officer shot and killed 2 people while responding to a domestic disturbance call, including that woman you see, Betty Jones, a 55-year-old mother of 5. Police are now calling that a tragic accident. Her childhood friends spoke out this afternoon in outrage.
It hurts me all over to know that the family's going through this tragic danger thing that's going on. Police shooting without asking. Why you got to shoot first and ask questions later? It's ridiculous. Somebody needs to do something about this. This is ridiculous. What about the taser? Taser him down. Don't start shooting people, innocent people.
And our Ryan Young joins me now from Chicago outside the house where the 2 victims lived and were killed. Ryan, we see that crowd gathering behind you. What's the situation there?
Well, the crowd is 3 times bigger than what it was when we joined you the last half hour. If you look over here, you can see the more than 100 people who have gathered here to not only have a prayer vigil, but then to walk and ask questions of the Chicago Police Department. They want to know where a taser was involved in this situation and why wasn't it used, especially when you had a 19-year-old who they believe was in mental distress. They wanted to make sure a taser was used, even though he had a bat in his hand. They want to know why he was shot so many times. The community is standing right in front of this house right now. I'm going to walk you over here. You can see actually the green markings on the side of this building. That is where the bullets entered this home. Not only did they hit Betty Jones, a grandmother and a mother of 5, but they also hit Quantero LeGrier, who was an engineering student. This community is rallying behind these points because they are tired of what's going on here in the city of Chicago. They said they want changes. And as you look here, the hundreds that have gathered who plan to march in the next few minutes, so they want changes and they want Rahm Emanuel to answer for the things that are going on in the city. In fact, we talked to some of the family members this afternoon who were just upset about what's going on in the city.
My wife's aunt, Betty Jones, was shot and killed by a Chicago police officer on the morning after Christmas. And while I'm tempted to feel hate for all Chicago police officers right now, I know this is a time where a difficult time we got to get past in our city. I think we got to show the police officers and the family a lot of compassion. This is not the time for hatred in our city. It's not the time for violence.
Look, so there's been a big conversation just about what's going on in the city of Chicago. This is the first deadly shooting since Laquan McDonald video was released. Of course, there have been people marching in the streets since November in terms of that shooting. Now we have another shooting involving police. We do know for the first time there's a new regulation put in place where the officer who did this shooting will be put on 30-day desk duty as they review all this. But the community wants answers. They want to know where was a taser involved in this case? How does a young man with a bat get shot by an officer? Did he run toward the officer? Was it caught on videotape? Is there any audio? These are questions that are people asking. And of course, you have another family, a grandmother, a mother of 5, who is standing here waiting to open the door to help police, and she's hit by the bullets that come through the door. You can understand why this community is so upset. Of course, they are calling for questions in terms of answers, or asking for answers in terms of from police, as the community gathers and starts having this conversation out here right in front of the house where the deadly shooting happened. Deborah?
And Ryan, has there been any sort of response or reaction by the police department or any kind of comments from the officer's lawyer about some sort of an investigation into this?
Well, people are, I don't know if you can hear that, but unfortunately one of the family members just started wailing and was crying and is very upset. The police department has not said right now what the name of the officer is just yet. They haven't gone into what the officer encountered. So far, we've just gotten the fact that they arrived to the scene, they saw somebody with a bat, and they engaged. The family is the one that's saying the young man was shot 7 times. And that's where this is coming from. They want to know more answers, and that's why there are people here calling for peace and calling for calm, but they desperately want to know what's going on, especially in a city that obviously has a police department that's already under question.
Absolutely. The top cop, Gary McCarthy, was forced to step down. There have been calls for Rahm Emanuel, the city's mayor, to also step down. But are you seeing, are they, I believe he's on holiday in Cuba right now. Do you see the fact that the community wants justice, the fact that the community wants more done? Do they feel that the city is trying to fix the situation, or do they simply continue to feel that they are so mired in what could arguably called bad policing of the past that they're just not going to be able to get out of it?
So I guess this will be the first really test of that. We'll see how the police department reacts. We'll see what information they release. We'll see what kind of conversations will come forward. And of course, these people are desperately looking for information. And there's going to be a test for the city because obviously they've been saying they're going to make changes. They're going to do things so the community can hear what's going on. But I think what a lot of people are understandably upset about is the idea that a mother of 5 and a grandmother could be standing behind a door and get hit by bullets, and obviously she was not the one they were targeting. And of course, there's the other question, a 19-year-old college student who's holding a bat. Their idea is, why not tase, why shoot? So a lot of questions right now, and obviously that trust between the police department and the community, that's already been snapped. So what do you do from here? And we'll have to be watching that over the next few days.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Ryan Young, thank you very much. We really appreciate your being there and monitoring the situation for us. We'll get back to you in just a little while. And we do want to talk more about this with retired LAPD Police Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. Cheryl, the police department says Betty Jones was accidentally killed. Now, just to put it in perspective, police were responding to a call from the family saying that they were dealing with an emotionally disturbed young man who was apparently threatening the father with an aluminum bat. How do police respond when they're going into a situation like this where there is somebody who's got what is easily a dangerous instrument?
Well, what we would hope is that the officers had a plan before they arrived on scene. And I believe that poor tactics and a lack of planning often leads to these kinds of deadly force incidents. They understood that they were responding to a radio call of a man with a bat. Where was the taser? Why didn't they deploy a taser? And if they didn't have one on scene, they should have had one with an officer who was responding as backup. What was the urgency? There was no exigent circumstance that the officers could not have waited until a taser arrived on scene. And so we hear over and over that these kinds of accidents happen, but they only happen in our neighborhoods. These mistakes don't occur in affluent neighborhoods. And until police chiefs and commissioners try to quit convincing us of things that we see as accidental, we're going to continue to have these things occur. We need accountability. That's what we need.
So what does need to change in Chicago? Does there need to be different layers of policing put in place so that pulling the trigger is not the first recourse?
Well, you know, the problem is systemic and it's cultural, and it's not independent of just Chicago. This is what we see on a national level. And so unless there's accountability when officers violate policy and procedure and law, unless there's accountability when you use deadly force as a first resort and not a last resort as we're taught, then officers will continue to do this, because if we don't do anything to deter bad behavior, then we don't change bad behavior.
And so as a police officer, and I'm sure you've seen situations where police have been put on administrative duty, which in the case of this officer, he has been put in administrative duty for 30 days. How does the investigation play out?
Well, what happens is right now, I believe, is that that police department is circling the wagons. And so they place him on administrative duty, and that's a gift. And then they craft a story to try to create a reason for this force, this deadly force that should have never occurred. And then because we have a short memory as a public, when this thing is when there's another incident of a greater magnitude, we'll forget about this and move on. And so then that'll be that. They'll tell us that he was reasonably fearful and he saw this or he saw that, and then we'll move on to the next thing. But we know that that was unreasonable. A bat is certainly can cause damage, but is not a deadly force. And deadly force should have been used as a last resort and not a first resort. So.
Well, it's so interesting also because it was the family that called the police department asking for help with this emotionally disturbed young man, a Northern Illinois University student. They were hoping perhaps that police could calm the situation or bring it back under control. And this woman, a friend of theirs, was asked to open the door when police arrived. Just a tragedy all around, and clearly one that will have a thorough investigation with it. Cheryl Dorsey, thank you. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
And come